Hello! We have one longer story today from Am I the Jerk of some audaciously entitled people with a tale that gets wilder with every update. It got a third and final update last week, so it's ready to sink our teeth into. As always, your support helps fight the Reddit bot menace. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Get ready for story 1. Am I the jerk for jumping out of the way when my niece and nephew tried to push me into a pool, resulting in them falling in? Happened today. My folks decided to host a barbecue because I guess that's what older people do. I declined because I really don't like my two sisters, their husbands, or their kids. Wife and I are child-free. Mom then pressured the wife. Long story short, we went. By the time we arrived, there were about 20 people there. My sisters and their husbands were already solidly buzzed. Drunk, really. My mom was spending 100% of her time trying to keep the nieces and nephews, ages 7 to 11, more or less under control. My dad had strategically retreated to the whirlpool part of the pool with a small cooler full of beers. Wife and I made small talk with miscellaneous people, ate food, and had a frozen margarita. Sisters and brother-in-laws took turns criticizing us for being late, not being in our swimsuits, and screwing up the vibe. Whatever. Typical suburban summer get-together. About 45 minutes in, 2 of the kids ran at one of the neighbor guests who was standing next to the pool and pushed her in. She was at the pool steps, stumbled in, but didn't fall, so only got half wet. She was clearly very unhappy about it, but she didn't make a scene. Just went over to where the parents were, grabbed their towels, dried herself off, and left. Sisters and brother-in-laws thought it was all great fun. A bit later, I was standing a few feet away from the pool chatting away with someone. I saw 3 of the kids running full tilt at me from the corner of my eye. Obviously, I was next. Not that it's terribly difficult to outwit young kids, but I just jumped out of their way at the last second. All 3 of them ran straight into the pool at full speed. Most of the other guests, including my wife and me, started laughing. But their moms, who as I mentioned were pretty wasted, absolutely freaked out. Apparently 2 of the kids couldn't swim even though they were in swimsuits. Since I wasn't in swim gear, I stepped back from the pool and let other people fish the kids out. The kids were bawling their heads off like they'd lost a limb. At that point, all hell broke loose. The 4 drunk parents were yelling at everyone in general and me in particular for nearly letting their kids drown. Also, because 2 of the kids had been videoing the trick using their parents' iPhones, which were now at the bottom of the pool. One of my brother-in-laws got into the pool to try to retrieve the phones, but his body mass index and blood alcohol level made that impossible. No one else volunteered to help. Unsurprising given that my sisters were still complaining at everyone. I told my sisters it was their job to watch their kids and that if anything had happened to them, it would have been their responsibility, not mine. There were some pretty strong words on both sides. Wife and I left after the other brother-in-law fell over and face-planted while yelling at us. Now they're saying I should have let the little brats knock me into the pool and have their fun and ruin my phone. So am I the jerk? Side note, Dad, of course, never got out of the whirlpool. Relevant comments. Question about why OP doesn't care for some of his family. It's more of an oil and water sort of thing. I've never been close to my sisters. They're 8 and 10 years older than me. I also don't have much in common with their husbands. They're okay guys, but I just don't give a flip about the things that are important to them and vice versa. I do know that the 4 of them are somewhat envious of our lifestyle. Both the sisters are stay-at-home moms. Both the husbands make good money. One makes noticeably more than I do, but both my wife and I have professional careers. We don't have kids, and we're way more responsible with money. As a result, we have a lot more investments, etc., and we don't have to drive cars full of kid debris, and we take nice trips once or twice a year. It definitely grates on both sisters, and by extension, their husbands. So we get some petty behavior from them on an ongoing basis. Overall, neither my wife nor I enjoy their company, which is why I wanted to skip the get-together. Just not worth it to me. But my wife is a positive person and is usually happy to see them. Question about whether the kids were okay. The kids are fine. By the time I left, they were inside watching TV. I think they're 7, 9, 10, 10, and 11. It was the middle 3 who played kamikaze with me. I'm guessing the 11-year-old egged them on. She's usually the ringleader. Reddit voted not the jerk. Update post August 17, 2023. First off, my folks tell me that my nieces and nephews are all good swimmers and that they use the pool all the time. The 7-year-old is still a beginner, but he loves the water. My sister just said they couldn't swim, so I'd look bad. To be fair, none of the kids are allowed in the deep end, which is where they fell in. It was the 2 10-year-olds and the 9-year-old who tried to push me into the pool. After we left, the party ended on a pretty sour note. My drunk brother-in-law, who face-planted while yelling at me, had to go to an urgent care place and get his face stitched up. He was too toasted to drive, so Dad took him. Dad was very not happy about this. Late that evening, my sister started a group text and said some really nasty stuff. Their husbands threw in a few comments as well. Wife and I blocked the four of them. My mom called me. She was pretty upset about what they said. She and Dad were in the chat, and I don't blame her. Because of the text, my folks insisted my sisters and brother-in-laws come over the next day, Sunday, without their kids to get some things straight and lay down some ground rules, Mom's wording. The result was a contrite, if unenthusiastic apology from the siblings via my mom's phone. I'm glad my wife was with me when they called. Her hard stares kept me from saying what I wanted to. I just told them thanks and that we felt no need to discuss it further. Since I thought things were settled, I unblocked them. That evening, I got a text from one of the brother-in-laws telling me the phones cost X amount of dollars and asking when I'd be paying for them. WTF? I replied, never. Took a screenshot of his text and forwarded it to my folks with a note that we were done with this nonsense. We're going no contact with sisters, spouses, and not to invite us to any more holidays or get-togethers if they'll be present. Then I blocked the sisters and their spouses again. At that point, the dung really hit the fan. Dad called them and ripped them a new one. Among other things, he told them the grandkids were not welcome at his place indefinitely. Since my mom regularly provides free babysitting, that got them pretty rattled. He also banned them from using the vacation house and told them my wife and I actually own it, not he and Mom. This completely freaked them out. Both of my sister's families use the place a lot, including having their friends up for weekend getaways. This was very much out of character for my folks. They'd clearly had it. And for reference, I never wanted my sisters to know we own the place. We bought it for my folks. They'd always wanted a place in the mountains. Keeping the ownership quiet was just a way to avoid drama with my siblings. A couple of days later, my sisters and their husbands came to our place unannounced to apologize in person. We were out to dinner and they left a note. One sister also called me at work too. I sent her to voicemail. We've decided being no contact is the best thing for the indefinite future and haven't interacted with them for the last 3+ weeks. Personally, I'm done. They can go pound sand. Relevant comments. Question about how life has been. It's been less than a month, but I have to say that blocking them has actually made our lives noticeably more peaceful. I hadn't realized how much ongoing low-level drama they create. It's not toxic. They're not bad people. They're just tiresome and petty. And I personally don't care about them using the weekend place. It's ours technically, but we bought it for my folks. They control it and decide who uses it when they aren't. We pay for all the operating costs and taxes. One good thing about this blow-up is that we now know what we'll be doing with the property when my folks get older. I was prepared to take over managing it, allocating weekends, maintaining it and such. But now we know we'll just sell it, and if we want to go to the mountains, we'll just rent an Airbnb. Question about OP's parents. Yeah, my folks aren't dumb. They're pretty laid back though, very much live and let live. I figure they'll ease up on all of this soon, but that's their decision. We still won't be attending any family events for the foreseeable future. What sucks for my sisters is that they're probably very worried that I'll keep them from using the cabin. I won't. That's up to Mom and Dad until they are older. And it puts an end to one of the sisters' fantasy of building a compound of houses when we inherit the property, which I've known about for some time and had just ignored. Normally, the lots up there only have one area that can be built on, but this piece of property is way larger because it's at the end of a road. At least 3 houses with great views could be placed on that land. About why OP's post was removed from AITA. According to the message I just read from the other sub's moderator, the violence was property damage. I still don't get it. The phone's being ruined, I guess? Ridiculous. Update to August 26, 2023. Well, it's been an interesting last few days. I thought the dung had hit the fan before, but it was more of a fart compared to what's happened this week. For this to make sense, I need to provide some financial context. My folks haven't ever been any good at saving money. I've been doing their taxes for years, so I know pretty much everything about them money-wise. Their house is paid for and they have minimal debt, but they didn't save much for retirement. Both of them get Social Security, Dad gets a solid pension, and they have a bit of savings, but there's no treasure chest in the basement. I bought their current car for them after they retired. It was a retirement present so they could have something nice to drive. It was the first car in probably 20 years they didn't lease. My sisters are convinced the folks are dripping with money and that our parents will be leaving the 2 of them everything. since I don't need more money. So they've never cared about saving either. Turns out my oldest sister and her husband, they have 3 kids, have been living beyond their means for some time and are in financial straits. They've maxed out their credit cards and are behind on their car leases to the point that one is about to get repossessed. He'd bragged in the past about making X per year, but it turns out to be about half that. She confessed all this to Mom on Tuesday because they need a loan. Also because, and this was a WTF moment for Mom and Dad, that for the last 3 years, instead of staying at the vacation house regularly, she's actually been renting it out once a month or so and pocketing the cash. We're talking $2,000 plus for a weekend and at least $4,000 for a week. With her being cut off from using the place, she's had to cancel one group already. She's now worried they'll lose everything. My folks aren't in any position to give them a loan. My other sister was aware of her renting out the place, but of course hasn't ever said anything. I suspect she's done the same thing as well because I went up there once to drop off an ATV I'd had worked on. There was a family there who claimed to be staying there with my sister, her family, and that they'd gone to town for something. At the time, I let it go. I figured she'd loaned out the house to some friends. But I've always wondered. I found all this out through my folks who are pretty stressed out about it. Mom more than Dad. He's mainly just angry about it all. I know Dad feels betrayed, and I imagine he's embarrassed that he's in no position to help his daughter out. He did reiterate that as long as it's up to him, the girls won't be using the vacation home anytime soon. My folks let me know what's going on because they figured my sisters would put a full court press on me next. And they were right. On Thursday, my sisters came to our place again, without husbands this time, and waited outside the door until I got home. I had to choose between fighting with them in public, them making a scene if I went in without them, or letting them in. So I let them in. I got a BS story from the older sister with the younger one backing her up regarding why I needed to let them use the mountain place. Again, immediately. They also said I've been a bad brother and that I needed to step up and plan on paying for their kids' college tuition since that's what family does. I let them pitch their story, then called them out based on what my folks had told me. Things went south from there. There was denial, crying, cursing, yelling, you name it. I swear my ears are still ringing 2 days later. Won't lie, I said some really mean things to them, but nothing that wasn't true. They finally left after about an hour. After that, I took a shower and laid down. When I got up, my wife was home, and her first words were that she'd had to block more phone numbers because my sisters were blowing up our phones from new ones. Folks messaged me yesterday asking me to call. I'm sure my sisters have told them some BS version of what happened, but I'm not up to rehashing it yet. I'm usually a pretty energetic person, but this drama has me beaten down. I had just enough energy today to drive up to the vacation house and padlock the entrance gate shut. I'm the only one with a key. I'm guessing that will be enough to ensure my siblings leave the place alone. They'd probably die trying to walk 400 yards uphill to get to the house. Update 3 September 12. Yet another update regarding the cluster bomb that is my extended family. Thought it might be time given what's gone on over the past 2 weeks. After my sisters came to my place, my mom and dad told me that they were done with managing the vacation home. Sounded like the sisters had been pressuring them to let them use the place again. Basically, my folks handed the responsibility for the place over to me and told me it was my problem from here on out. Up until then, they'd kept track of who would be using it when, and they'd taken care of routine maintenance, replacing worn-out items, etc. In any case, they decided they didn't want to be in the middle of all this. While I don't blame them, I'm disappointed, because the place was supposed to be something for them to enjoy and hang out in, and they use it regularly. Plus, I've never cared that they let my sisters and their families use it, because really, I've always thought that was my parents' call, even though I technically own it. But now my folks are going to be in the position of not having access without me being involved, and that changes the whole dynamic of the place. I've taken several steps to secure the place. I already mentioned that I locked the gate. It was a heavy-duty chain and the best lock I could find. I also did a full reset on all the door keypads and created all new codes. Security cameras got installed yesterday, which is actually pretty cool because the installer convinced me to put a high-res one that looks out over the valley. The system cost me way more than I thought it would, but the peace of mind is worth it. The installer also put up signs on the property saying the place was monitored by video. I also installed a heavy-duty lockout for the water shutoff and drain valve. I hope to hell I don't lose the key for it because if I do, it's going to be a bear to try to remove. Haven't told anyone but my wife that the water is locked off again, only we have the keys. Last week, I got separate calls at my office from both of the husbands trying to convince me to let them use the house, like they always have. The older one had gone up with some friends for a guy's hangout but couldn't get in because of the gate lock. He was pretty angry and embarrassed about being locked out. I'm sure he would have broken the lock if he could have. During his call, he kept bouncing between pushy and victimhood. At one point, he threatened to rip that gate out of the forking ground. He also admitted that they'd been renting it out to a few friends, that they needed the money. I was ruining their business, and that I should refund their guests' money. Me? F that. I should have recorded the conversation with him, but I don't know how to do that from an office phone anyway. The other brother-in-law just sounded like he was being made to call by my sister. He didn't really put up a fight when I told him not to plan on ever using the place again. In any case, I told them they can't use the place and not to ask again. At this point, I'm considering selling the vacation home. Wife and I won't use it enough to justify keeping it, and it's not like there's going to be any family get-togethers there anytime soon. I mentioned selling it to my folks. Their response was pretty much, whatever. I'd more than double my money by selling it. The place consists of 3 lots with killer views and is at the end of a private road. But I'll probably wait for a while to sell. Doing so now would be an emotional decision. My sisters and I aren't currently speaking, and I have no plans to initiate contact. I don't know what the status between them and my folks is, and I don't want to. On the upside, we spent an evening with my folks last week, went to a new restaurant. That was nice. No one brought up any of this. Mom did update us on the nieces and nephews. She's spending time with them at their homes. Sorry this update isn't full of laughs or owns. That's just life sometimes. Relevant comments. They seem very entitled. Could you rent it out yourself and/or sue them for profits? I agree that my sisters and their families are very entitled. They're also in an extremely weak position in all of this. The place is a bit remote to rent as a long-term home. Plus, there are times during the winter the road is impassable, so staying there year-round is pretty iffy. There are a couple of permanent residents on the road who are at a lower elevation and relatively close to the year-round public road, but even they have to hunker down or bug out a few times each winter. Regarding making it a vacation rental, doing so would be seen by my sisters as rubbing salt in the wound and would give them a reason to create more drama. And honestly, we don't need the money. The place is paid for, it's in great shape, it doesn't cost much to keep the lights on, etc. I did think about lawyering up and covering them with paper. It wouldn't even cost me much. A good friend is a property law attorney. But again, doing so would escalate things and give them reason to create family drama. My primary goal at this point is to minimize my involvement with them and minimize any nonsense that causes my parents stress. I'm willing to take some short-term flack and absorb some expenses like the camera system to keep things contained. It could blow up again, but I suppose I'll drive off that bridge when I come to it. I don't think we'll sell right away, if at all. It's more of a last resort, personal fantasy thought than anything else. There's a good chance that come holiday season my folks will reset and want to have the entire family there, which is fine. We won't be going, of course, but I don't care if my parents have guests there. I intend to keep control of the place for the indefinite future, though, which will be inconvenient at times because I'll be the only person with a gate key. But I can live with that. Question about the audacity. Yeah, the renting thing, I just don't have words. One of the harsh but true things I told my sisters was that they had risked my property and stolen from me, and that made them no better than common thieves. Their response was that our parents hadn't told them they couldn't, so it was okay. I just can't think that way. Don't know about the spine, but thanks. I think it's more that I just don't care that much for them, and because of all this nonsense, I'm now having trouble caring if they live or die. That might be unhealthy of me, but I'm comfortable with my feelings. I agree about the arm's length thing, too. We're saying no contact with them all for the indefinite future. This is the calm before the storm. They'll try to guilt you again. Quite possibly. I know one thing for certain. I'll burn that place to the ground before my sister ever rents it out again. Financially, I'm pretty certain my older sister, who was renting out the place regularly, is screwed. I know they're trying to take out a second mortgage, but unless they can contain their spending, that will be a stopgap at best. I admit, I didn't realize until recently how much they and the other sister and brother-in-law resented me over my financial situation. But I figured out it's pretty intense. Honestly, I thought both families were doing well. They drive new cars, have nice houses, everybody has all kinds of electronic gadgets, etc. But all that was smoke and mirrors, at least for the older sister. I'm finding it impossible to give a frack, though. I should probably be more empathetic about all of this, but the truth is, I really don't care much about my sisters and their families. I don't feel any real bond to them. Certainly nothing like I have with my folks or my in-laws. Heck, I'm way closer to my wife's siblings than mine. In any case, I don't care how my sisters live so long as it doesn't involve me. Question about why not just sell it. My parents, Dad in particular, love the area the house is in, and it's close enough that they can drive there with minimal effort. I think they prefer I not sell it so they can continue to use it, which is fine with me. And they like getting everyone together, so my sisters and their families will end up there. And really, that's fine too. We're not going to be there. I hope they have a great time. But as to my sisters using the house again without my parents being there, never again. Question about moving forward. Yes, this will probably be a long-term issue for my siblings, but they can't harass me if we never speak again. All they can do is make my folks upset, and my parents are capable of dealing with that themselves. Eventually, everyone will get used to the new reality of the house not being available. I'm going to find a property manager in the area who can unlock the main gate for me and do other routine stuff so I don't have to go up there when my folks want to use it. That will cost me less than the place being used by my sisters 3 out of 4 weekends. I pay all the bills, and the place will stay secure. And also, yes, my oldest sister can get a job or they can cut back their lifestyle. They probably won't do so until they get some massive reality check like getting their Suburban repossessed, but that's their problem. We won't be helping them. My folks can't realistically do so. I'm having a hard time pretending to care one way or the other. Like John Wayne said, life is hard. It's harder when you're stupid. In the comments, someone said, the peak of entitlement was reached when they demanded OP pay for their children's tuition. Boggles the mind. Alternative Year 340 replied, I'm guessing they were planning to pay the tuition from the rental money, and when OP shut that off, well, clearly he needs to replace those funds. Honey White said, and the whole scheme unraveled because the Nibblings wanted to make a TikTok. Himleo3 replied, I was just about to comment that this entire scheme blew up, all because the entitled jerks couldn't be bothered to watch their little ones. Huh? Stardust Stuffing said, not gonna lie, I live for his updates. We all know this trash fire is far from over, poor guy. Angry Mom replied, that reminds me of the post where the OP's brother and sister-in-law wanted him to give them the house he bought. And when he said no, they just showed up and started moving in. Stardust Stuffing added, I remember that one. And the parents were all on board. Talk about cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. At least here the parents are normal. And on that note, before I jump into the commentary, I have read that story, so I will make it the link at the end of the video. Oh my gosh, I cannot even with this story. I wonder how many stitches the brother-in-law had to get after that faceplant. Man, karma really can hit you where it hurts, am I right? Bet they're wishing they had called it a day in replacing the phones. I can't decide if justice would have been all the sweeter had they continued to spend themselves out of house and home, only to realize that there is no inheritance. Something to think on. And that's it for today. Until next time, shine bright, Starlight. Yahoo! If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.